Welcome to Travel Show Live with Steve Perillo. Today's special guest is Rudy Maxa, one of America's best travel experts, and we're going to talk to him in a moment. Stay tuned.
From Studio 17H, this is Travel Show Live with Steve Perillo.
Welcome back to Travel Show Live with Steve Perillo. Today's special guest is Rudy Maxa, one of America's premier travel experts. He's host of Rudy Maxa's World on PBS. He's also been the host of the 65-episode Smart Travel series that highlighted Europe and the Pacific Rim. Not only that, and this is one busy guy, he's also well known as the public radio's savvy traveler, and he's the award-winning contributing editor to National Geographic Traveler. And there's even more. I mean, by the time I finish this intro, the interview is going to be over. He narrates Walks of a Lifetime, which I'd like him to discuss a little bit. Rudy, are you there?
I'm here. Look, Steve, I'm just an old guy. That's why you got a lot of stuff to read. I'm old.
I can't believe it. I was going to ask you, when you arrive at JFK or LAX and you have to fill out the customs form, what do you say that you do, Rudy?
Well, I just say travel journalist. I mean, the first 22 years of my career were in Washington, D.C. and New York, and I was an investigative reporter and gossip columnist for the Washington Post for 13 years, and then 9 years with the city magazine Washingtonian, a couple years as D.C. bureau chief for Spy, which was the former satirical magazine back in the good old days that were a lot of fun. So I sort of really had two kind of careers where I was an investigative reporter, and then I sort of segued into travel about 15 or 16 years ago, not by any particular design, but it just sort of happened. And so travel journalist is what I put as occupation today.
Okay, so investigative journalists and travel journalists, how are they the same and how are they different?
Well, they're certainly very, first of all, no one was really particularly happy to see me at parties in Washington, D.C. I was sort of Mr. Bad News. I broke a lot of political sex scandals and financial scandals, missed the Pulitzer by one vote, but I don't even remember that, Steve. It's really gone far from my mind. Whereas as a travel journalist, people are generally happy to see you, and people want to talk to you about the vacation they never took or the one they did took or the one they're about to take. So it's a very different kind of thing, but I think certainly training for nearly 3 decades as a classic journalist, doesn't hurt at all in the world of travel, because I sort of bring a reporter's sensibility to things I write about. I'm not, overwhelmed with the wonderfulness of it all the time. And I like to know who owns things and what's going on and what the business structure is behind a resort or a hotel or an airline. And as I said, I think I sort of think as a reporter as opposed to purely a travel guy.
Right.
Not that there's anything wrong with being purely a travel guy. You certainly made an enormous success of that.
So you answer the questions who, what, where, when, how, why, similar to an investigative journalist.
Yeah, I tried, and I don't feel compulsion to love everything I taste, drink, experience, see, etc.
I understand that. I ask travel journalists a delicate question, and many of them get mad at me because I know you get some free services once in a while.
Yep.
And you have to be honest about how do you handle that kind of thing. And please don't be mad at me, because
I am not the least bit mad at you.
It's a tough question.
Well, so. It is. It's a tough thing to determine what's right and wrong. For example, my first 13 years as a journalist were at the Washington Post, and if I so much as accepted a free lunch from a source or somebody I was potentially going to write about, I would be fired. So that was my upbringing as a journalist. And then when I sort of got into the travel world, I found myself being offered all these junkets to free places and free trips and free wonderful things.
By the way, you can go on a Perillo tour anytime you want for free. I'll pay you to go. So,
that would not be necessary. But and I found it quite interesting and challenging ethically. You're absolutely right. The way I handled it, for example, when I did the Savvy Traveler radio show, which was a 1-hour weekend show that I created and hosted coast to coast on NPR, public radio for 4 years. Some of our reporters went on travel junkets, and what I would say as the host, is, Joe Smith was invited by the government of the tourism department of Monte Carlo to visit, and this is his report. And even today, if I write something, I'll say, look, in the interest of full and fair journalistic disclosure, I was a guest of the hotel or a guest of the tour company or whatever. Mm-hmm. The real truth is that if you're fairly successful as a travel journalist, you don't have time to do a lot of this stuff. I mean, I get offers, you're absolutely right, all the time to take free trips and free hotels. I don't have the time. I mean, I got work to do. And I find, and maybe you have too, I find among a lot of travel journalists, they make the mistake of taking all the freebies, and then they write a piece for pardon me, Toledo Blade, for $75, and they've spent a week in Europe,
Right.
and pretty soon they're broke, and they can't figure out why they're broke. They're having this fabulous life.
So your trip selection is based on what criteria? Your invitations, where you want to go?
Well, most of my traveling is for the public television series, for Rudy Maxa's World. And we decide we want to do a show on, Shanghai, or a show on, wherever. I mean, we've got 6 in the can for the next season. We did 3 in South Africa. We redid London, redid Scotland, and just got back from a Silk Road show in Uzbekistan. It's mainly where I want to shoot. And, we have a budget for that. We have corporate underwriters, so it's been a heck of a year to get them this year, and I haven't succeeded entirely. But we have corporate underwriters, and I will talk to an airline and say, in an effort to cut costs, I'll say, look, you want to fly us over, we will give you a credit at the end of the show, not a visual, just a type credit saying, with thanks to Lufthansa or Cathay Pacific or whomever. So it's sort of a mix of that sort of thing. And if we stay at a hotel that I think has got some sort of history or story to it, they might be on the air, 6 seconds in a 30-second show.
Right.
So
I own a hotel in Rome called the Rose Garden Palace, and I would invite you as a guest, and I'd expect you to be honest no matter what you felt, whether you got a freebie or not.
Well, that's why
that's all you have is your honesty.
And that's why you're a good hotel owner. I find among the hoteliers that are the most respected in the business, I have a very good friend named Stan Bromley, who used to be a vice president of Four Seasons, ran the one in Washington and San Francisco. And I would sometimes stay with him, and he would say, listen, I don't want you to tell me how great the hotel is. I want you to tell me what's wrong with the hotel.
Yes.
Because that's how I benefit, because then I can change things and things better. So if you find somebody, not delivering the kind of service they've been trained to do or I expect them to do, or something wrong with the bedroom, or plumbing, tell me, because that helps me.
Exactly. I agree completely. We're going to be back in a minute, but when I come back, I'm going to discuss your psychic abilities, because you predicted all these add-on fares with airlines 3 years ago.
Yeah, I did.
We'll be back in a moment.